Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, with our main topic. We're discussing the first Arab-Chinese Summit for Cooperation and Development, which took place in the Saudi capital on Friday and was attended by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. We are going to shed more light on this. So we have the pleasure to host with us His Excellency Ambassador Mahmoud Ayoub, Minister of Commercial. Good morning.
Good morning to you and to the viewers.
Well, Your Excellency, how do you see the timing of this summit?
It is a breakthrough in the international relations and new formation of relations between nations. The Arab countries are now, they are not changing their course, but rather diversifying their cooperation agreements, their cooperation strategies.
Yes.
It is not confined to a certain country or certain bloc, but rather to diversify it to include a big power or an important power on the international arena, which is China.
Yes.
China is coming to the Arab countries through development, and Arab countries need development. This is one thing which is very important. Second is that they don't interfere, and they highlight this point in the internal or domestic affairs of any other countries, and also China. When we read the communique, the final communique, they find that it's also against any interference in the internal affairs, domestic affairs, like Hong Kong, Taiwan, or these things, and highlighting the importance of cooperation instead of confrontation, which is quite acceptable and agreed and liked by the Arab countries who are looking for strategic alliance with a big power and emerging power in the international arena, which will be the first economic bloc.
Yes.
Within, let's say, 5 years, you will hear about China. It will supersede the United States as the first economic power in the world.
Yes, and during the summit, Your Excellency, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi addressed the summit, the importance of his address to the summit.
Egypt is keen to diversify its sources of
Yes.
cooperation. Egypt at the same time is balancing its course between the different countries of the world, whether between China, the United States, Europe, Russia, taking a balanced approach to relations with other countries.
Yes.
To the benefit of the Egyptian people and the Egyptian economy, which is very important. I highlighted the economy because at the end of the day, you find that the economy is the livelihood of every citizen.
Yes.
So when we see that the Chinese initiative and holding this summit between Arab countries and Chinese president, this means that China knows very well what we need and is ready to cooperate with the Arab countries, namely Egypt and Saudi Arabia, in the respect. And they created what is called the Silk Road between China and this part of the world, and they are going to develop relations with the countries which
Yes.
are on the Silk Road coming through Suez Canal, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, which is very important both for Egypt,
Yes.
for Saudi Arabia, of course, and other countries at one side, and for China, because China is playing an increasing role in the international arena. When I say the increasing role, they began with the economy, and they have had several projects, economic projects, whether in Africa, in Asia, in Latin America, and they are keen to take hold of the future of the economic relations. It will not be dominated by the dollar or by a certain country. And so China and the Arab countries are changing the course of strategies of the foreign relations to be more balanced between the emerging powers and traditional powers like the United States and Western Europe.
Yes, so Your Excellency, the summit is titled Cooperation and Development. So could you give us, explain more about this title of the summit, the examples that you could raise concerning the kind of cooperation and development?
If we look to the final communique of the summit, we find that it adopted all, I said all, the resolutions of the United Nations. So it is based on the international consensus on the importance of peace, stability, and development. China has a role to play. Maybe in the last decade, 2 decades, they focused on economy only. Now they are coming to politics and to strategy and strategic alliances, if we can say, or strategic cooperation, let us say, instead of alliances with other countries. And the Middle East is a very important block, if I can say that, in the world. Why? It is a source of fuel, petrol. And we know what is happening in Western Europe now after the Ukrainian war.
Yes.
So Egypt plays also a role because there's a hub for gas, by the way.
Yes.
So Egypt has a role to play and a dominant role to play in this cooperation between China and the Arab countries. And luckily, we have access to all the markets in the Africa and also to the Arab countries. And so China has a very big advantage when they come to Egyptian market.
Yes.
And Egypt and create, will I call it, a strategic alliance with Egypt, especially in the development and in cooperation in other areas which are very important, whether politically or financially or in development process, which
Yes.
Egypt began 6, 7 years ago, and we established 2030 roadmap, which is based on sustainable development goals of the United Nations.
Yes.
So Egypt, Arab countries, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Arab countries are keen to establish a sound basis for cooperation. It is not for this interval or this time, but for a long-standing, for the years to come,
Yes.
for decades to come. And China has a role to play in the Middle East because it is one of the big importers of petrol from Saudi Arabia and from Qatar.
Yes. So, Your Excellency, can we say that the cooperation between China and the Arab countries is a result of the good political relations that are established between the Arab countries and China? So it was extended to the limit of cooperation and development and on the economic and trade level?
We cannot forget that Egypt, we are back to Egypt,
Yes.
is the first Arab country
Yes.
to establish diplomatic relations
Yes.
with China, and maybe the first or second African country to establish relations with the People's Republic of China.
Yes.
So Egypt is a gate, I will say a gate for cooperation between
Yes.
China
Yes.
and the African continent and also the Arab countries.
Yes.
So the wise course adopted by the Egyptian leadership, political leadership, encouraged the Chinese to venture in the Silk Road and make a Suez Canal by two banks of the
Yes.
two banks of the Suez Canal, one of the roads which it will cross, and this will be beneficial or mutually beneficial, whether for China or for the Arab countries. I did not say Egypt alone, but also for the Arab countries, whether from Morocco to Qatar and Bahrain.
Yes.
We are pleased to see that the president have been to this summit, and also the Chinese president is there. This will create a new, because in this kind of summits, what happens that there are sometimes or many times mutual understandings between the two leaders,
Yeah.
which is processed by the second row of leadership in the countries. And we expect that China will increase its economic presence, whether in the Suez Canal the area, the Suez Canal golden triangle, or in Egypt, or in the Arab countries, for the mutual benefits. And at the same time, which is very important for us, it creates some kind of balancing act between the United States, which was dominant for some time, and the dollar was dominant for a long time. And now I think it is the beginning of the diminishing dominance of the dollar in the international arena. And we have seen that between China and Russia, they began to use their local currencies. The BRICS countries,
Yes.
BRIC countries also began to use other countries than the dollar. So
Yes.
there is a lot of a change, strategic change, I say, in the international arena. It is not only one superpower, but several superpowers, and these several superpowers are emerging as stronger,
Yes.
starting from economic field.
Yes.
When we see what is happening in the Pacific Ocean, and China is increasing its presence there, and now in the Middle East, and petrol producing companies, and a big hub of gas like Egypt, this means that China is keen to establish a stronger presence in the area, which will be also to the benefit of Arab countries. It is not monopolized by one European or American country, but rather it is a balancing. We are not changing course, but rather diversifying our course to be more balanced to the benefit, so that we will not be prone to pressures
Yes.
from some countries, as we have seen it at some time during the last 5 or 6 years. We've seen pressures, and luckily we maneuvered, and now China is there, and China is not a medium power, but rather a superpower.
Yes. Yes, Your Excellency, Ambassador Ayoub, concerning attracting investments, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Iraq top the agenda of the countries that attract the investment. So if you would like to elaborate on that, and how would the summit help in boosting Chinese investment in the Arab world?
Investment is an important tool for development. If we take Iraq or Egypt as an example, we find that we need investment, because now we have a very strong base that is of infrastructure. This base was created not for fun, or not just for tourists, which is quite good, but also for economic development in Egypt. When we have seen recently, this month, heads of states of Egypt, Jordan, and Iraq came together to establish more cooperation in the economic field. This is creating more economic opportunities for the Egyptian labor, for the Egyptian companies, and also for the Egyptian exports.
Yes.
China is now stepping in with this country, namely Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Egypt, and maybe Algeria at some stage, to establish more economic and more stronger and concrete steps to develop the economies of these countries. China has a stake in the area. When they come, they don't come with a hidden agenda. We have suffered a lot from hidden agendas, but the Chinese are quite transparent, and we are quite alert to what can happen, and we have our experience in dealing with several countries, or several let us say strategy at the same time, and successfully. It is a good maneuver from the Egyptian leadership to go to this summit and focus on the areas of interest of the Egyptian leadership, that is development, stability, peace, and also there is a Palestinian issue, which is a headache for the Arab countries. Also the final communique of the summit highlighted the importance of this focal point for the Arab countries. They supported all the United Nations decrees or their resolutions in this respect, and this is something which we have seen since 1955, since Egypt established economic, political relations, diplomatic relations with China. So China is paying back to Egypt through all the Arab countries.
Yes, yes.
It is very important for China to establish not only economic presence in the area, but also, strategic or the shade of it is political presence in the area, which is good for the Egyptian economy, for the Egyptians' foreign policy, and also for the Arab countries. They need some other power to balance the dominance of a certain Western power, which monopolized the situation in the area for so many years, unnecessarily.
Yes. So, Your Excellency, Ambassador Ayoub, on the sidelines of the summit, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held talks, side talks with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Could you give us your insight concerning the importance of this, and what's the importance of holding the talks, sideline talks, where the two presidents are face to face with each other and are behind closed doors?
I consider this one of the most important results of the summit. The meeting between...
The sideline meeting.
Yes, sideline.
Yes.
Why? Because with the meeting between President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and President Li Peng is very important for Egypt and for China.
Yes.
Egypt has a role to play in the area, has a role to play in the Middle East, has a role to play in Africa, and is a good gate for the Chinese companies to establish presence in the Egyptian market, in the Golden Triangle of Suez Canal and the other areas like the Western Desert, and come because they find a big market here, and it is a good gate to other countries because we have preferential trade agreements with all the countries of Africa and all the Arab countries. So this sideline meeting is very important because it will be a beginning of more cooperation, bilateral cooperation between China, and this is, we are keen to increase areas. I have served in China for some years in the 80s and know how China can benefit the Egyptian economy because we are a big market, and at the same time we have good export potentials as far as the Chinese market is concerned. So it is bilateral, the two-way transaction which the Chinese know very well, and when they speak about it, they say it is mutually beneficial. So we are lucky that President Fattah al-Sisi managed to hold this sideline meeting with President of China, and this is a beginning of a new area of cooperation, more cooperation. There is cooperation. There will be more cooperation between China and Egypt, especially in economic field, to ensure the stability which Egypt is enjoying now, and also to create a good environment or friendly environment for the Chinese investments in Egypt, in the areas which Egypt has characterized and stipulated, and they said we want this and this and this. We have a roadmap, and Chinese are ready to come and to cooperate economically with Egypt in this area, and we are also keen to encourage more other powers or countries to come and step in the Egyptian market.
Yes. Quickly, we're running out of time, but concerning the Palestinian cause, the summit also agreed to, of course, and said to support the
Yes, this is something very important.
Palestinian cause. Yes.
The Chinese, from the beginning of from 1955, were support of the Arab cause to the Palestinian cause, and implementation of the United Nations resolutions for a peaceful settlement, and also for the Jerusalem, the capital of Palestine, and they do not agree to the annexation of territories by Israel.
Yes, I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us today, Your Excellency Ambassador Ayoub Mahmoud Ayoub, Minister of Commercial. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you.
My pleasure. I really had the honor to host you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please stay for more in The Breakfast Show.